Hey guys, tonight we're leaving behind the soft, clean sheets of modern life and descending into a place where the sun never shines and the air always smells faintly like rust and regret. That's right, you're entering a World War II bunker. Not for a tour, not for an hour. You live here now, for weeks, maybe months, maybe longer. There's no fresh air. There's no soft mattress. There's just you, a flickering overhead light, and the knowledge that the world outside might be on fire, literally. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And I'd love to know, where are you watching from? And what time is it right now, where you are? Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The first time you walk down the bunker steps, your breath actually pauses. It's not fear exactly. It's confusion, like your body is waiting for a cue that doesn't come. A smell, a shift in the light. Anything to make this place feel like it belongs in the world you recognize. But it doesn't. Because as your boots clomp down onto the concrete, you realize the air doesn't move here. It's not just quiet. It's sealed, heavy. Like the atmosphere got vacuum packed. The walls are thick pocked with flaking paint and old sweat. Someone's carved initials into a pipe. There's a dent in a door frame that looks suspiciously like a forehead, and someone's hung a sock from a nail in the wall. You do not ask. The descent isn't long, but it feels like you've entered another time zone, one where clocks melt and gravity presses down in the shape of silence. There are no windows, not even fake ones, just steel and cement and the low electric drone of a generator that sounds like it's giving up on life. A soldier, tired uniform, rumpled, possibly asleep, while standing, waves you through. His eyes never really focus. He just mutters, "Pick a cot." You do. Your cot is exactly 6 inches wider than you and about 4 inches too short. It creaks. The mattress is thin and not really a mattress, more of a suggestion. You toss your pack down and immediately regret it. A puff of dust or something rises. You cough. The guy across from you gives a small nod. You have been initiated. The ceiling hangs low, a slab of reinforced misery with pipes that threaten your scalp. You'll learn their names later after the bruises. Your neighbor offers advice. Don't put your boots under the bed. Rats take it as an invitation. You laugh. He doesn't. This is life now. And it's not just about being underground, it's about being sealed underground. You learn very quickly that sounds don't behave the way they should. Every voice feels too close. Every footstep is thunder. A spoon dropping can trigger a 3-man investigation. The light is always the same. Dim, yellow-white, sickly, like the last gasp of a dying sunbulb. You already know you'll dream in this color, if you dream at all. A historian once noted that Soldiers in bunkers developed what he called underground malaise, a kind of flattened spirit that came from sensory deprivation and perpetual confinement. Others just called it the bunker blues. Either way, you can feel it creeping. Your brain, used to days and nights and stars and wind, starts asking questions it can't answer. What time is it? What day? Is that smell new? You take inventory of your world. One cot, one footlocker, one tin mug, one ever-present drip in the far left corner. Welcome to your new home. Outside somewhere far up the stairs and beyond the blast doors, war continues. You hear it vaguely distant thumps like giants arguing. The earth shivers every so often. But down here, in this sealed crypt of steel and sweat, the war feels strangely far away, which doesn't help you sleep. Because down here, silence is rarely comforting. You lie back on your cot boots, on jacket still zipped helmet nearby. You're told never to fully undress. Emergencies don't wait for pajamas. The blanket is rough, scratchy, like sleeping under a tarp made from disappointment and sandpaper. But it's warmish. You pull it up to your chin. Try not to think about what or who has used it before you. You hear a cough, then another. A snore, the groan of metal under shifting weight, the wet slap of something small rat against concrete. A pipe gurgles loudly, off key, and just like that, you're wide awake again. Someone mutters in a language you don't understand. Another curses, another laughs. You close your eyes and try to pretend you're not sleeping in a giant concrete sardine can. Fun fact, in some British bunkers, they painted murals on the walls, gardens, skylines, even fake windows. A trick of the mind, a flicker of color to remind soldiers they once lived above the dirt. Here, you get peeling gray. Maybe, if you're lucky, a postcard of someone's girl taped above a vent. You don't know yet that you'll get used to this, that soon the idea of sky will feel abstract, that fresh air will seem like a fever dream, that sleep won't come unless the ceiling's 12 inches from your face and the air smells faintly of rusted hopes. You don't know yet that, despite it all, this place will come to feel safe. But tonight it's just new and terrifying and far too quiet. You lie there, not sleeping, just waiting. There's something unsettling about the way air behaves in a bunker. You notice it quickly. It doesn't drift, doesn't flutter your sleeves or stir your hair. It just exists, heavy, damp, still. You breathe it in and it feels like swallowing steam that forgot to be warm. Every inhale is a little rebellion. Every exhale adds one more ghost to the room. The ventilation is working technically. Somewhere in the bowels of the structure, fans spin slowly, dragging outside air through filters that once held promise, but now mostly hold dust and dead insects. You can hear the low hum, but there's no breeze. Just a tired sigh that lingers. You don't feel refreshed after a deep breath. You feel coated, like something's sticking to your lungs. Old oil mold spores, maybe a hint of despair. This is where you live now, and it smells like it. The scent of the bunker isn't just one thing. It's a cocktail of soldier sweat, gun grease, wet wool, and potatoes that have overstayed their welcome. Somewhere nearby, someone's socks are drying, and by drying, you mean fermenting on a low shelf. There's a drip. It started last night, or maybe last week. Time's fluid down here. It comes from a pipe overhead, one drip every 13 seconds. You've timed it. You've counted it. At first, it drove you mad. Now it's part of the rhythm. Drip, drip, drip. Like the bunker's heartbeat. Some say sleeping underground brings calm protection from bombs, from bullets, from the randomness of war. That might be true, but it also feels like you're buried alive. The walls press in just a little more each day. Your eyes strain in the dimness. Your ears adjust to the strange silence, a silence made of other people trying not to move, not to breathe too loudly, not to exist too hard. A soldier across the room coughs into his blanket. Not once, not twice, but the kind of cough that says he's been ignoring something for too long. You roll over, pressing your face into your jacket to filter the air. Historians still argue whether two bunkers were marvels of engineering or just tombs with plumbing. The truth's probably both. Built in haste, many were reinforced with whatever material was handy: concrete, wood, scrap metal. Some were even carved into hillsides or cliffs. And yet, despite the effort, few could escape the inevitability of moisture. Mold blooms in the corners. It creeps up wall seams, fuzzy greenish black swirls that look like forgotten galaxies. You stare at one patch until it seems to pulse. Probably your eyes. Probably. There's a wire dangling from the ceiling. No one knows what it connects to. It doesn't spark. It just hangs ominous, like a snake taking a nap. The floor, meanwhile, is permanently damp. You learn to step lightly, lest your sock find a cold patch. You also learn that some puddles are suspiciously warm. No one talks about why. You try to dry your uniform near the vents. Bad idea. After an hour, it smells like cooked wool and regret. Everything in the bunker has two states: damp or about to be damp. Your blanket is never quite dry. Your boots develop their own ecosystem, and the back of your neck always feels slightly sticky. Even the air tastes different. You notice it when you sip tea, if you're lucky enough to have any. The steam rises slowly, heavier than it should be. The smell of metal, of stale water, boiled in a chipped kettle, clings to your tongue. You try not to think about where the water came from. Someone says it's filtered from a nearby well. Someone else says it's rainwater from a tarp drain. You stop asking questions. Instead, you learn to breathe less deeply, to live in shallows, to keep your thoughts on the surface where they can float instead of sinking into the concrete silence. A guy named O'Hare swears the air down here is making his skin peel. He shows you. It's not peeling. It's just bunker skin, pale, clammy, sad. You nod anyway. because everyone's looking for a reason they feel the way they do. Some blame the lighting, some blame the food. Most just stop blaming anything and carry on like ghosts with dog tags. One night, someone lights a match to check for drafts. Bad idea. The match hisses. The flame flutters for a second, then dies without ceremony. No draft. Not even the air wants to move. You lie back on your cot. The ceiling's still there. The air's still stale. Your chest rises and falls steady, but uninspired. And yet, you adjust. That's the strangest part. You adjust. You learn to breathe through your shirt, to sleep with your face turned toward the wall where the condensation is cool, but not dripping. You start to recognize the exact flavor of the air at different times. Oh, it's diesel fume o'clock, or, today's notes include expired onion. You joke lightly, because it's either that or let the stillness swallow you whole. And the bunker doesn't need help doing that. You get to choose your cot, but not in the way that implies freedom or comfort. It's more like being handed a toothpick and told to pick your favorite bed of nails. Still, there's a subtle art to it. You scan the space, taking in each option like a battlefield strategist surveying terrain. The corner, it might seem like the obvious choice. It feels safe, protected, but it's also where the moisture gathers. You'll wake up with a damp shoulder and maybe a few new friends. Mold spores that name themselves. Near the entrance, good airflow, well, relatively speaking, but terrible noise. Everyone shuffles past. You'll learn more about boots than any human should. Middle of the room, social suicide. Too exposed. No control over light, sound, or sudden overhead leaks. You're basically declaring yourself the sacrificial offering. Eventually, you pick the least cursed option, a narrow cot wedged between a rusting field radio and a stack of mystery crates marked tinned meat, 1940. Could be beef, could be bear, could be long-forgotten guilt from Supply Command. You sit on your new home, it wheezes, the mattress is thin, lumpy, and gives off a faint scent of vinegar. You assume it used to be padding. Now it's just textile surrender. There's a small shelf beside your cot. On it, one burnt match, a scrap of paper with "Tell Margaret I'm not dead yet" written in pencil, and a spoon that's clearly been chewed on. You don't touch anything. A guy across the aisle gives a nod. "That bed eats socks," he says. You assume it's a joke. It's not. Within a week, you're down a pair. The cot has no real head or foot, just a metal frame that seems to shift every time you look away. It has a dent in the middle. You learn to sleep around it, curled slightly, like a shrimp in uniform. Above your cot, a pipe runs across the ceiling. You bump your head on it twice during setup. The second time it actually hisses at you, either steam or the bunker, expressing displeasure. You tie a sock around it, bright red. A warning flag, or a fashion statement. Morale counts. Historians still argue whether cots like yours were standard issue or cobbled together from leftover scaffolding. Some units received wood frames with canvas, others wire mesh stretched tight. A few unlucky souls slept on planks. You've got metal bars and optimism. You try to arrange your gear neatly. That lasts until the first alert drill. Then everything becomes shove it somewhere and hope for the best. Your helmet becomes a storage bin. Your canteen sleeps beside you. Your boots perch under the cot, where they'll later vanish like dreams of Paris leave. There's something strangely intimate about this space. It's not private, not by a long shot, but it becomes yours. You memorize the pattern of rust on the cot leg, the tiny crack in the ceiling above your pillow, the exact angle of the light bulb that flickers when it's cold. And it is always cold. That's the thing no one tells you. Even underground, wrapped in steel and concrete, winter finds a way. The floor is bone-deep chill. The walls sweat icy tears. Your breath fogs faintly, and your fingers forget how to feel. You wrap a scarf around your neck. You sleep in your jacket. You huddle like some kind of military hedgehog and try not to think about what you're breathing in. The field radio beside you crackles occasionally, not with anything useful, just static, a ghost trying to speak Morse. Sometimes it screeches, loudly. At 3 a.m., you've nearly punched it more than once. But you don't. Because you're not actually mad. You're here, in a war, sleeping beside a crate of unknown meat and a radio with intimacy issues, and somehow you're getting used to it. One soldier brings a tiny photo of his dog and pins it to the wall with a bent nail. Another arranges matchsticks in a neat grid under his cot. You eventually find a small stone in your pocket, picked up weeks ago from a road somewhere far away, and it becomes your totem. Little pieces of the outside world anchored into this gray cement womb. A quirky tidbit: in some bunkers, soldiers actually gave their cots names, like pets or boats. One American private reportedly named his Martha after a girl who dumped him. At least now, he said, she is the source of my back pain. You don't name yours, but you do begin talking to it, quietly, at night. Little things. Don't squeak now. Or, please don't dump me on the floor again. It responds with silence and occasional groans, like a tired roommate. Eventually, it doesn't feel weird anymore. Nothing does. Night doesn't fall in a bunker. It slouches in uninvited and stays too long. There's no sunset, no dimming sky, no stars to measure time. Just the same old yellowish light humming in the ceiling, forever tired, never quite off, never quite comforting. You lie back on your cot, staring upward. But the real drama isn't above you. It's around you. The noise in a bunker doesn't follow the rules of polite society. It's not background ambience. It's a patchwork quilt of groans, coughs, rattles, and the occasional shouted curse stitched together with echoes that bounce around the concrete like stray thoughts. Boots thunk, pipes bang. Somewhere A wrench hits the floor like it's declaring war. Then there's the breathing, too close, too wet. Some of it yours, some of it not. And some of it coming from a guy who apparently wheezes in Morse code. You try to block it out. You fail. A metallic clang erupts behind you, and someone yells, "Who moved my kit?" A dozen boots shuffle. There's a long pause. Then, never mind, found it. A few muffled laughs. A snore returns to life like a lawnmower with opinions. The walls respond with their usual chorus of creaks and whispers. A mainstream historical fact, most WW2 bunkers weren't designed for sleep. They were built for survival, short bursts of protection during bombardments. But the reality of war meant people lived in them, sometimes for weeks, months, long enough for hygiene to surrender and for everyone to forget what silence used to sound like. Sound travels differently down here. It bends around corners. It hides in pipes. It waits until you've just started drifting off before reminding you that peace is a luxury you left behind. Every metallic noise becomes a gun cocking. Every shuffle might be a warning. You pull your blanket up to your chin and squeeze your eyes shut. Someone whispers your name. You jump, then realize it's not your name. It's someone else's nightmare leaking into your night. The man 2 cots down talks in his sleep, in full sentences, in 3 languages. You don't even know his name, but now you know he regrets a woman named Clara, hates potatoes, and once lost a pair of dice in Marseille. He sobs, just once, then falls silent. You shift onto your side, facing the wall. Not that it helps. The wall radiates the day's accumulated cold like a disappointed parent. Then there's the generator. Ah, yes. The great dragon of noise growling steadily somewhere above your head, sometimes coughing, sometimes sputtering, always hungry for fuel and prone to drama. When it hiccups, the lights flicker. When it growls louder, someone somewhere swears. And when it goes silent, that's when people really panic. You hear it all. Boots squeaking on the damp floor. The shink-shink of someone sharpening a blade for no apparent reason. The slosh of water in a dented canteen. A rat that seems to be sprinting laps just beneath your cot. And always, always, the distant rumble of artillery. It's never close enough to be urgent, but never far enough to forget. You count the seconds between booms, like counting the space between lightning and thunder. You know the rhythm now. Boom. Wait. Distant echo. Floor trembles just a bit. Then stillness. You imagine the outside world somewhere up there, above the bunker ceiling, the black sky, the shattered trees, the frost clinging to wire fences. You imagine someone up there smoking a cigarette, looking at the stars and wondering if they'll ever see Paris again. Then someone knocks over a mess tin and the spell breaks. You're back in your concrete tomb, surrounded by the quiet cacophony of survival. Historians still debate whether these nightly noises affected long-term mental health. Some say the soldiers adapted. Others argue that the tension etched itself into their bones, that the constant hum of near danger rewired their ability to rest. You lying there now would bet on the latter. Your ears never stop working. Even when your body is still, your hearing stays alert like a guard dog with insomnia. Eventually, you reach a strange kind of peace with the chaos. It's not silence. It's familiarity. Every creak, every cough, every muttered curse becomes part of the nighttime symphony. You can even predict them. 3 cots down the guy with the wheeze-cough combo. 2 cots left the snorer who occasionally laughs in his sleep. Directly behind you, the boot dropper. Always once. Always loud. Never on purpose. It's awful. It's bizarre. It's home. You sigh long and slow, trying to ride the rhythm. You close your eyes again, and just as you start to sink into that hazy, almost sleep, the radio crackles. You're freezing, not in the dramatic icicles on your eyelashes way. No, this is quieter, slower, more insidious, the kind of cold that seeps under your skin, settles behind your kneecaps, and whispers, "Get used to me." You curl tighter into your blanket, if you can call it that. It's more of a military-issued suggestion of warmth, woven from the thickest, itchiest wool known to mankind. It smells faintly like mildew and history, and it doesn't bend so much as fold into shape with a stiff sort of resignation. You wrap it tighter around your shoulders. Your boots are off mistake. Your feet ache with that dull, almost humming numbness. You rub them together, trying to trick them into life. Your breath hangs in the air, visible in the yellowish light like a guilty secret. You think about socks. You think about dry socks. You think about the pair you lost last week to whatever lives beneath your cot and now refer to as the sock thief with taste. Rationed wool is famously uncomfortable. During Wabuwawa, soldiers' blankets were often made from a rough blend that was as durable as it was scratchy. You try not to think about where the wool came from or what it's absorbed over the years. Someone said the British Army issued 3.5 pounds of blanket per soldier. Someone else says it was just a tarp with delusions of comfort. You try folding your jacket over your feet. It doesn't help. The jacket is cold too, because everything in the bunker is cold. The air, the walls, your pillow, which is actually your helmet stuffed with spare clothes and wrapped in a towel that smells faintly of boiled carrots. Every inch of your body longs for warmth. Even your ears feel cold. You tug the blanket over your head and immediately regret it. The air under there turns damp and warm in the wrong way, like breathing inside a woolly gym sock. So you poke your nose back out. You find a position, the least uncomfortable. One arm folded, one knee bent, your back pressed against the cool cot wall, trying to create enough friction to produce warmth. It doesn't work. You'd give anything for a hot water bottle, or a heated brick, or even a mildly judgmental ferret to curl up with. Instead, you get Thompson. He's in the cot, next to you, and he snores loudly, with little chirps at the end, like he's trying to summon woodland creatures. You think about throwing a boot, but you only have one left. Instead, you shove more blanket around your ears and try again. The light above you flickers. You watch the shadows dance across the ceiling. The cot squeaks every time you shift, which is often. You feel like a metronome for misery. There's no fireplace, no stove, just a space heater somewhere near the center of the room that barely whispers warmth. You once sat next to it for an hour and left colder than when you arrived. Historians still argue whether sleeping conditions in W2 bunkers contributed more to fatigue than actual combat. Some say the lack of real rest wore soldiers down quicker than any march or skirmish. Others believe the camaraderie made up for it. You're not convinced. Camaraderie doesn't keep your toes from going numb. You try tucking your hands between your thighs. Not elegant, but effective. Briefly. Then the drip starts again. That infernal drip. It lands somewhere nearby. On the floor, the cot, your jacket. You wait. Drip. There it is. Drip. You count. 13 seconds apart. Just like last night. You consider naming it. You already named your cot after all. Maybe you'll name the drip George. Seems like a George thing to do. Being annoying, consistent, vaguely wet. You sigh and roll over. And suddenly your blanket slips off the cot and onto the cold floor. You freeze, literally and emotionally. You lean down to retrieve it and immediately regret letting your arms stray out of the blanket cocoon. It's like plunging into a bucket of disappointment. You yank the blanket back and pull it over you like a medieval knight donning armor. It has about the same flexibility. And then comes the itch. Oh, the itch. No one talks about the itchiness of army blankets, but it's there. It starts on your neck, then your ankle, then your elbow. You scratch through layers of fabric, growling under your breath. You shift, shuffle, rearrange. You scratch with the energy of someone filing a formal complaint. And then, stillness. Finally, you lie there, wrapped in itchy wool, feet icy air, damp eyelids, drooping. You almost fall asleep. Almost. And that's when someone across the room farts in their sleep, loudly, triumphantly. And somehow it's warm. You bury your face in your helmet pillow and mutter curses that would make your grandmother blush. A quirky tidbit: soldiers in particularly cold bunkers sometimes slept in pairs, not for romance, but for body heat. 2 men, 1 blanket wasn't a saying, it was a survival tactic. You wonder briefly how desperate you'd have to be before considering it. Answer: give it 2 more weeks. Your bones ache, your back protests, your fingers twitch with cold. But eventually, somehow you doze off, wrapped in damp wool, listening to George drip, dreaming of socks. You don't so much wake up as resurface, like a diver, coming up through mud, through soup, through a blanket that smells faintly of defeat. Your eyes open to the same ceiling as yesterday, or maybe it's still yesterday. Time here folds in on itself like an accordion. No one plays anymore. Your breath puffs out in a slow cloud. Cold. Again. You're curled like a question mark. Your joints crack when you move. Your lower back stages a protest. Your shoulders numb from sleeping on the same side too long, and your right foot seems to have forgotten it's part of the team. Good morning, soldier. Somewhere, someone bangs a pot. Not gently, not rhythmically. More like a call to arms delivered by a disgruntled ghost with no sense of personal space. Breakfast, or whatever approximation of it awaits you today. You sit up. The cot groans. You groan louder. You unwrap yourself from the blanket, now stiff from dried condensation and questionable ambition. And there it is, the air. Still thick, still vaguely metallic, still cold. You jam your feet into your boots, wet, of course, and wince. You'd rather face artillery fire barefoot than go another day in these swamp traps. But here you are doing both. You stand. The floor meets you like an old enemy. Damp, unforgiving, slightly sticky. The bunker is already stirring. Men shuffle past hair, matted from sleep shirts, only half buttoned. Someone sneezes into a rag. Someone else mutters to himself about the wrong kind of salt. The morning ritual begins. There is no sink. There is no mirror. There is, however, a metal basin filled with what might once have been clean water. You splash your face. It's cold enough to make your soul hiccup. You dry off with the least wet corner of your towel. You spit into the shadows and move on. Historians still argue whether daily hygiene was even feasible in field bunkers. Some sources mention wash kits. Others suggest men just gave up after week 3 and embraced the stink. A few reports describe shared basins, communal towels, and airing out uniforms near ventilation shafts. You think that's adorable. You walk to the mess corner. If you're lucky, there's porridge. If you're unlucky, there's porridge. It comes in a dented tin pot, ladled out by a corporal with a 1,000-yard stare, and arms that suggest he used to lift something other than ladles. He doesn't speak, just serves. You sit on an overturned crate, spooning gray mush into your mouth. It tastes like glue, with overtones of regret, and maybe onion. Someone says it's oat-based. Someone else swears it used to be rice. You stop asking. Next to you, a soldier named Becker adds instant coffee powder into his porridge. He stirs it without blinking. You watch in horror. He nods once, like he's made peace with something deep inside. Breakfast of champions, he says. You move your tin farther away. Behind you, a rat the size of a house cat scurries by like it owns the place. No one flinches. You make brief eye contact. It looks judgmental. You eat faster. A quirky tidbit in some Allied bunkers, soldiers developed unofficial spice swaps, trading things like black pepper or chili flakes smuggled from care packages to improve rations. A single clove of garlic could buy you laundry duty exemption for a week. You currently have a sugar packet you'd sell your soul for. The generator growls to life. The lights flicker. A spoon clatters to the floor, instantly regretted. Everyone watches it roll silently, counting the seconds until it finds the one sticky patch on the floor. It does. Someone sighs. You finish your porridge. You chew the last bite 10 times too many, not for digestion, but because it gives your mouth something to do. After breakfast comes chores, which is military for stuff we don't want to fall apart yet. You scrub your boots, which is ironic, considering they're just one damp stomp away from returning to nature. You fold your blanket with military precision. You stack your helmet on your cot. You polish your mess tin with a sleeve that hasn't been cleaned since last spring. All of it pointless. All of it necessary. You do it not because it matters, but because it might matter. Because order is a warm blanket in a place that has none. You glance at the calendar chalked on the wall. Someone added a sad face on Tuesdays. There are 13 tick marks under November. It's February. No one erases them. Someone coughs. A deep barking thing. You pause. Everyone does. But he waves it off. Just the cold, he mutters. Sure it is. You pick up your rifle. Cold, heavy, reliable. You sling it over your shoulder and move toward the exit tunnel. Time for your shift topside, but not before one last glance at your cot. You nod to it. You'll be back soon, and it'll still be cold. The tunnel to the surface feels like something out of a dream, long, narrow, half-lit, and always colder than it should be. You walk in silence, your boots echoing just enough to remind you you're not the only one awake. Somewhere ahead, someone clears their throat. Somewhere behind a match flares to life. A little puff of orange light in the dark, then gone. You climb. The ladder rungs are cold iron slick with condensation and maybe a little regret. Your gloves barely help. Every step is a negotiation with gravity and muscle memory. But you've done this often enough that your body does the thinking for you. Then the hatch. It groans open like an old man getting out of bed. The cold outside punches you in the chest hard, immediate and unrepentant. You pull your collar up. Your breath fogs the air, and for a second, it looks like the world is on fire. Then it's just gone. You step outside, and everything is white. Snow stretches across the landscape like a freshly made bed you're not allowed to lie on. The wind slices through your uniform like it has a personal vendetta. Your eyes water, then freeze, then water again. Welcome to morning. The bunker is buried into the side of a hill, camouflaged under netting and patches of frozen dirt. It doesn't look like much from above, just a shadow in the terrain, but inside, it's a hive of muttered curses, sour breath, and porridge. Your job this morning? Perimeter check. You trudge along the path carved by 100 boots before yours, packed snow, then slush, then ice again. Each step makes a noise somewhere between a crunch and a complaint. You pass a line of sandbags wearing a thin coat of frost. Behind them, barbed wire catches the morning light like frozen spider webs. Beyond that, nothing. No trees, no houses, just gray sky and the kind of wind that makes you forget what warm felt like. Your fingers ache. You try to flex them inside your gloves, but they only twitch in protest. A mainstream historical fact during the winter campaigns of Waddy. Frostbite was as common as bullets. In some divisions, over 10% of soldiers were treated for cold-related injuries. They issued wool socks, mittens, even animal fat to rub on toes. Sometimes it helped. Usually it didn't. You shift your rifle from one shoulder to the other. The metal is cold enough to bite. You stop at your post. Just you, a snow-dusted lookout crate, and a kettle half buried in the snow from someone else's shift. You don't sit. The wood is too cold, and besides, sitting invites sleep, and sleep is the enemy now. You scan the horizon. Nothing moves, which doesn't mean nothing's there. You pull your scarf higher until it covers your nose. You blink into the wind and try not to think about your toes. Your breath creates little clouds. For a moment they look like smoke signals. You imagine what you'd say. Send socks. Missing sensation in fingers. Tell my mother I love her, but I hate oatmeal. The wind eats the words before they ever form. To pass the time, you count things. Fence posts, 17, clouds 1, but it's enormous. Possible landmines 2, probably duds, still terrifying. You glance at the sky. The light never really changes, just fades from cold blue to dark gray, then back again. A quirky tidbit: some soldiers in bunkers used to place spoons in their mouths during patrols, not to stay warm, but to keep from clenching their teeth so hard in the cold that they cracked molars. You try it once with your own spoon. It feels ridiculous. It also kind of helps. Time drips by, slower than the leak above your cot. Eventually, you hear the crunch of boots behind you. Your relief has arrived. A quick nod. No words. You pass off the watch. You head back to the hatch. The ladder feels steeper on the way down. Or maybe that's just the fatigue. You re-enter the bunker like a diver returning from an icy swim. The warm air slaps you gently in the face. Not because it's truly warm, but because outside was worse. Inside smells like porridge sweat and old canvas. You inhale deeply. You're home. Sort of. You peel off your outer layer, hang it on the hook above your cot, and collapse onto the mattress. It's still slightly damp from your last sleep. It always is. You no longer notice. The ceiling greets you like an old friend. You blink. Twice. You're asleep before the third. You don't dream, not really. Just flickers. A hand reaching for a spoon. The sound of boots on gravel. A warm bowl of soup that turns into a helmet just before you bite it. And then you're awake. Again. Not because of noise this time or cold, but because someone's standing too close. You don't even open your eyes. You just feel it. That sixth sense you've developed, bunker awareness. You know when someone's watching you, when someone's rummaging through your gear, when someone's about to sneeze, and you've got half a second to roll the other way. This time, it's Simmons. You can smell the tobacco on his breath. Kitchen needs help, he mutters. You groan. It's not even your shift. But kitchen duty waits for no man, not even a half asleep, half frozen you. You sit up, bones cracking like old floorboards. Your boots greet you with a squelch, still damp. You lace them up anyway. You don't remember the last time they were dry. You shuffle down the hallway, past sleeping bodies, clattering tinware, and the ever-constant drip of George. You don't know who started calling it that. You just know it's still dripping. The kitchen isn't a kitchen, not in the modern sense. It's a corner of the bunker that smells like soup and compromise. There's no oven, just a metal stove with all the personality of a tired librarian, a few dented pots, and a sack of root vegetables that's been judged unfit for compost in any decent society. A mainstream historical fact. Wubry with 2 field kitchens operated under extreme limitations, with supply lines stretched thin and fresh. Ingredients, rare meals were often repetitive, bland, and heavily rationed. Creativity became a soldier's secret weapon. Today's menu, cabbage, just cabbage, boiled, unseasoned. Again, you sigh and get to work. You chop, slowly, mechanically. Your fingers numb your grip, clumsy. The knife's dull. The cutting board rocks. The cabbage smells like a foot with ambition. You scrape the leaves into a pot, already steaming with more cabbage. Someone stirs with a ladle that looks like it once served in the Navy. Don't let it burn, says the corporal walking past. He doesn't stop. You nod, though you've already forgotten the last time food here had enough flavor to burn. You stir. The steam fogs your glasses if you wore them. Instead, it just fogs your vision. You stir some more. In the corner, a bucket of water simmers. Someone adds a handful of barley, not measured, just guessed. Precision has long since abandoned this place. A quirky tidbit in some trenches and bunkers. Soldiers traded recipes, scrawled in notebooks. Dream meals, written like poetry. Beef stew with wine. Fried chicken. Chocolate cake. They called it menu dreaming. You think about starting your own. First entry, anything with salt. You stir again. Someone throws in a bone. Just one. It looks ancient, like it has seen things. You glance at your reflection in the pot lid. Yep, you've seen things too. Lunch is almost ready, kind of. You ladle the watery cabbage stew into metal tins. The men file past each one, holding out their tin like they're hoping for something better. They never get it. You hand out portions, watching their eyes glaze over. No one complains. Complaining requires energy and hope. Then comes Becker. Of course. He takes his portion, sniffs it, frowns. Then without a word he pulls a packet from his coat pocket. instant coffee. He sprinkles it on the cabbage. You stare. He eats it. You stare harder. He nods. Still better than last Tuesday, he says, walking away. You wonder if he's a genius or a war criminal. Possibly both. You finish the last ladle. The pot is empty. Not clean. Just empty. You set it aside with the others. You scrub it with sand and cold water. No soap. No sponge. Just your will to live and the edge of a cloth that smells like yesterday's feet. The water turns brown, then gray, then murky enough that you question your life choices. Historians still debate the psychological toll of bad food in prolonged warfare. Was it the hunger, the monotony, or the sheer indignity of bad soup twice a day for months on end? Some claim soldiers adapted. Others insist the stew became symbolic, a reminder that nothing, not even meals, made sense anymore. You dry your hands on your pants. You sit down for your own portion. You eat it. It's hot. And honestly, that's enough. You scrape the last bit from the bottom, savoring a single chunk of actual cabbage that somehow has texture. You sit in silence. Just you, the tin bowl, the sound of men eating around you, and the ever-present hum of the generator above. You exhale. Your shift is done. You wipe out your bowl, stack it, and return to your cot. You pass Becker, who's now chewing on a biscuit like it personally offended him. He nods. You nod back. It's the closest thing to a dinner party you've had in weeks. You're back on your cot again. It's familiar now, not in a comforting way. More like the way you recognize the flavor of a bad cough syrup. You don't enjoy it, but at least you know what's coming. Your back hits the mattress and the spring sigh underneath. Or maybe that's you. Hard to tell anymore. The light above you flickers once. You wait. It holds. Good enough. Around you, the sounds of digestion, gear adjustments, and quiet muttering settle into their usual nightly rhythm. Someone's brushing crumbs off their chest with a toothbrush. Someone else is telling a story in low tones to no one in particular about a time they stole oranges from a French market. You pretend to listen, but mostly you breathe. In, out. The air is damp, heavy, the kind of air that makes you feel like you're breathing through a sock. You shift. Your shoulder finds a less painful spot on the cot frame. Your knee pops. You stare at the ceiling again. You count the cracks. 6 long ones, 3 shorter ones, 2 that form a shape that looks vaguely like a goat. You name the goat Gerald. Your brain is melting. You blink again. Still awake. You try lying on your side, then your other side, then your stomach. Then you curse quietly into the blanket. You're exhausted, but that doesn't mean sleep comes easily. It's a different kind of tired, the kind that fills your limbs but not your head. Your thoughts are still marching, still taking orders, still listening for sounds outside the bunker. A mainstream historical fact: many soldiers during World War II developed what would now be considered mild insomnia. Not because of anxiety, necessarily, but because their brains simply never turned off. The constant stress, the bizarre hours the body's sleeping in, bursts of 20 minutes here, an hour there. It reprograms sleep itself. You roll over. Someone nearby lets out a tiny snore. You hate him, but only a little. You close your eyes again. Still nothing. So, you think about something you haven't thought of in days. Home. Not the concept everyone here talks about home like it's an idea, a flag, a reason. But you think of your home, your street, that groaning floorboard by the kitchen, that yellowish light in the hallway that flickered even before war taught you to hate flickering lights. Your mom's voice, calling you in for dinner, not shouting, just calling. You think about the smell of laundry, the quiet tick of a clock. You think about your dog. Then you stop, because that one hurts too much. Instead, you think about your bunkmate Thompson, who once claimed he could identify stew ingredients by smell alone. You didn't believe him until the time he called out turnip sawdust hope and turned out to be exactly right. A quirky tidbit: during long deployments, soldiers often invented games to pass the time. One popular choice, soup roulette, guessing what mystery meat had been delivered based on smell, texture, and the level of regret afterward. You once guessed boot leather. You weren't far off. The lights flicker again. Someone mutters something about rats. You don't hear the rat, but you believe him. Historians still argue about the prevalence of rats in bunkers. Some claim the threat was exaggerated, used to scare new recruits or pass time with horror stories. Others insist they were real companions, scurrying across faces mid-sleep and stealing biscuit crumbs with military efficiency. Your stance. You've seen their work. The teeth marks on your rations don't lie. You check your pockets. Your biscuit is still there. You put it under your blanket, just in case. You close your eyes. Again. And finally, something soft. A slowing heartbeat. The room doesn't get quieter. You do. The voices blur. The drips blur. The world stops demanding your attention just for a moment. You fall. Not all the way, not deeply, but enough to drift. And just as you're on the edge, boom! A distant one. Not near, but not far either. You're awake again. You wait. No siren. No stampede of boots. Just one long silence, followed by a cough. Then someone farts. Loud. A beat. Then laughter. It ripples across the room like a tide. You laugh too, because honestly, that was a good one. You breathe in, you breathe out, and you try again. This time the dark holds you a little longer. Not peace, but something close. You wake up to the sound of someone singing, badly. It's not the worst alarm you've had in this place, but it's definitely top 10. The voice is nasal, slightly off-key, and muffled by the acoustics of the bunker, which turns it into something halfway between a funeral dirge and a lullaby sung by a dying kettle. You don't move yet. You let your eyes adjust to the same half-light. Let your ears accept that the world has in fact begun again. The song is in French, or maybe Italian, or maybe Private Corrigan is just inventing his own language again. Either way, it's morning. You sit up. Your joints creak like the hinges on an old barn door. You feel older than you are. You are older than you were when you went to bed, not just in hours, but in miles, in silence, in small invisible losses. Your boots wait for you, like sullen children. You slide them on wince and consider whether losing a toe might actually be better than keeping it at this point. Someone drops something metallic in the corridor. The clang echoes. Everyone groans in unison. Morning, time to fetch water. The canisters are stacked by the door, dented and cold to the touch. You take one. Becker grabs another. You don't talk about it, you just go. The snow outside is somehow wetter than yesterday. It's still snow, but it behaves like a liquid that's been personally insulted. You trudge. Down the path that leads to the water station, a glorified metal drum, half buried in a dugout, covered with a sheet of canvas, and guarded by a man with a slouch and a rifle he treats like a walking stick. He nods. You nod. He lifts the canvas. You fill your canister. The water isn't clean exactly. It's filtered through enough cloth and hope to be called drinkable. But you've learned not to question the floaty bits. They add character, maybe protein. A mainstream historical fact. Field water purification during Wallavoie was rudimentary. Soldiers often used purification tablets that tasted like pennies and made your stomach feel like it had just joined the Navy. In winter, water was sometimes melted snow, heated in old helmets over tiny fires. It worked, but tasted like helmet. You hoist your canister, now twice as heavy and twice as annoying, and begin the walk back. Becker hums as he walks. You say nothing, because what would you say, nice tune, reminds me of dysentery. You get back to the bunker. The door sticks again. You kick it. It relents. Inside, it's slightly warmer than before, because 20 men breathing in a sealed box eventually make the place feel like a damp armpit. You drop the canister. You stretch your back. You sigh. And then you notice the new guy. You hadn't seen him before. Maybe he came in late. Maybe you were asleep. Maybe your brain just filed him under miscellaneous boots. He's young, too clean, too quiet. He's writing in a little notebook. His face glows faintly in the lantern light. You sit nearby. You nod. He nods back. You glance at the notebook. He covers it reflexively. Letters, you ask. He nods again. You don't push. He'll learn. A quirky tidbit: soldiers during the war often wrote letters they never sent. They weren't always addressed to real people. Sometimes they were letters to old selves or imaginary futures or even to the war itself. A kind of therapy with no expectation of reply. You reach into your own pocket. You pull out a folded piece of paper. It's not addressed. It's not written. But you hold it sometimes like a talisman. Maybe one day you'll find the words. You tuck it back into your pocket and head to the mess corner. You refill the stove's water pot. You stir what's left of yesterday's stew. It smells marginally worse today. Aging hasn't helped. You poke at a floating bit of vegetable. It pokes back. You put the lid on and walk away. The new guy follows you with his eyes. You wonder how long he'll last, not in the fatal sense, not yet, but in the how long until he starts humming to himself, chewing on paper, and dreaming of peanut butter kind of way. Historians still argue about the psychological arc of a bunker soldier. Was there a set timeline? A steady descent from sharp discipline to frayed nerves to talking to the soup? Or did it come in waves? Some good weeks, some bad, some just waiting. You sit back on your cot and stretch your legs. Your socks are still wet. You take them off. You don't put new ones on. Why bother? The wet always wins. You stare at your feet. They look pale and ghost-like. You wiggle your toes. They respond barely. You call that a victory. The lights dim, not because of power, just because the sun has given up outside. Another day, sliding into another evening. You eat dinner in silence. The same stew, a biscuit, half a spoonful of jam someone smuggled in. It's red. You don't ask what fruit it was. It doesn't matter. It tastes like sugar, and that's enough to make you pause. You savor it. You close your eyes for just a second, and you almost smile. Almost. There's a trick to making your bunk feel like yours. Some guys hang little things, bits of string, photos, a doodle of a woman with exaggerated curves and a too small waist. You don't judge. You've seen worse. Though you've got a small stone flat round the color of burnt toast. You found it weeks ago while digging out a drainage trench, half frozen in the dirt, smooth, like it had been touched by time itself. You keep it tucked inside your shirt pocket, near your heart. It reminds you of the beach, not a real beach necessarily, just the idea of one. Warm, sun-soft wind, waves doing their endless job without complaint. You hold the stone now, curled on your cot, turning it slowly in your fingers. It's warm from your body heat. That feels like a miracle. Outside, the storm has returned. You can hear it through the concrete wind screaming like it's late for something important. Somewhere near the ceiling, something metal rattles, then stops. You wait. It doesn't come back. The silence feels heavier than the noise. Someone sneezes. Someone swears. Someone lights a match. You count the seconds before the flame flickers out. 7. You shift under your blanket and press the stone to your cheek just for a second. It's stupid, sentimental, and comforting in a way you can't explain. A mainstream historical fact, trench and bunker soldiers often developed odd attachments to small objects. A button, a bullet casing, a twist of string. Psychologists later called it transference. Anchoring. The object became a kind of proxy for control, way to survive chaos by investing hope into something tiny, consistent, and utterly useless. You call yours toast rock. Becker calls that deeply unwell. You shrug. You both survive the same way. Across the room, the new guy, Private Novak, apparently sits hunched over his notebook again. His pencil moves fast. He writes like someone trying to outrun his own thoughts. You know the feeling. You used to be that fast. Now you write slow, deliberate, carefully rationing each word like sugar cubes. Novak catches you looking. He tilts his head, a silent question. You raise an eyebrow. He hesitates, then tears a page from the back of the notebook and hands it to you as he passes your cot. You glance down. It's not a letter. It's a drawing, a tree, a pine maybe, wide at the base, crooked at the top. It leans a little like it's tired but still standing. The pencil strokes are confident, shaded just enough to look alive. You don't say anything. You fold it in half and place it inside your coat. Novak doesn't wait for praise. He just sits back down and keeps sketching. You realize he hasn't spoken a single word since you met him. A quirky tidbit in some bunkers, the quiet ones became scribes, not officially, just informally. They were the ones who remembered stories, jotted down, dreams, drew maps to places that didn't exist. Some of those sketches are still found today, taped inside helmets or scrawled on mess tins. You close your eyes for a minute, not to sleep, just to listen. The storm outside is louder now, louder than it has been in days. You can hear snow scraping across the top of the bunker, dragged by the wind in dry sheets. It sounds like sandpaper or teeth. You imagine the bunker as a mouth. You inside it, not sure if you're being protected or chewed. You sit up again. Sleep's not coming tonight, not yet. So you wander. Down the corridor, past George the Drip, past the pile of boots and coats, past the man who mutters names in his sleep. You reach the comms room. It's barely a room, more like a closet with wires. There's a radio. It buzzes faintly, static, nothing more. But sometimes, if you're lucky, you hear music. Not often, but sometimes. You sit on the floor and twist the dial slowly, carefully. It crackles, snaps, gurgles, and then faint, like it's coming from the moon, someone's voice. A woman, maybe, singing, or maybe just humming. It's not clear. It's not even on key, but it's real. And in this place that's better than beautiful, you lean against the wall, close your eyes again. Let the ghost of the melody fill your chest like breath. Historians still argue whether underground radio signals in bunkers offered any real morale boost. Some say yes. It reminded men of the world beyond. Others claim it made things worse, stirring longing for something unreachable. But you don't need to argue. You just know it helps. You stay there for a while. The storm keeps screaming. But inside for now, there's just music and warmth and toast rock. You're not sure when you fell asleep, only that you did, because now you're waking up again, still seated, still against the comms room wall, and your neck has stiffened into something resembling a rusted hinge. The radio has gone back to its usual buzzing, and the woman's ghostly hum is long gone. You stretch, or try to. Your spine makes a noise like a deck of cards being shuffled badly. You wince, roll your shoulders, and shuffle back into the main corridor. It's darker than usual, not because the lights are out, but because nobody's bothered turning on the brighter ones. Everyone's moving in low light now, whispering more, holding mugs closer to their chests as if guarding something precious. You know that shift. It's the bunker going quiet, not because of danger, just exhaustion. You pass Novak again. He's sleeping now, mouth slightly open, pencil still in hand. He's drawn on his arm, in his sleep, a spiral maybe, or a snail. You're not judging. You've seen worse tattoos. Someone hands you a cup of tea, or maybe tea. It's hot and vaguely brown, which qualifies. You sip it. It tastes like regret steeped in hot water. You drink it anyway. A mainstream historical fact, tea and coffee were vital morale boosters in Wubby bunkers and trenches. Soldiers hoarded them like gold. Some even traded extra cigarettes or rations just for one real tea bag. The British ran entire operations to ensure tea reached the front lines. It wasn't about hydration. It was about hope. You carry your cup over to the supply wall. That's generous. It's not a wall. It's a few crates stacked creatively. One labeled tools that contains a spoon, 3 rusty nails, and something that might be a squirrel skull. You're looking for socks, clean numbered, dry. Hopefully, you find a pair that's only mildly damp and slightly crusty. You call that a win. As you bend down to grab them, a loud groan echoes from the metal ceiling. Not the storm this time. Something else. You and Becker lock eyes. You've both heard it. The ice. It's shifting. You listen. Then crack. Not big. Not immediate. But enough to make you pause. You count to 5. Nothing else. You carry on like nothing happened, because that's what you do. That's what you have to do. A quirky tidbit in heavily snow-covered bunkers, the weight of compacted ice and snow on the roof could sometimes shift slightly loudly, especially during temperature changes. These noises were dubbed sky whispers or death sighs. Most of the time they meant nothing. Most of the time. You sit by the entrance for a while. The cold seeps in through the edges of the door. You can see your breath. You hold your cup close. Someone starts playing cards in the corner. Not real cards, scraps of paper with numbers drawn in pencil. The game doesn't follow any real rules, but that's part of the fun. They make it up as they go. It's about arguing, not winning. You're invited to join. You decline. Your head's too full for games. Instead, you start folding your old paper biscuit wrapper. One corner, then another. You don't know what it's becoming. A crane. A boat. A metaphor. Probably just trash with creases. You fold it anyway. The light in the bunker buzzes. You look up. The bulb flutters and holds. Then click, it dies. Total darkness for a moment. No panic. Just a communal groan. Then flashlights click on. Matches spark. The weak glow of a lantern is lit near the soup pot. Everything shifts into flickering shadows like you're all actors in a play no one paid to see. Historians still debate the psychological impact of bunker lighting. Was it better to leave lights on and maintain a sense of routine? Or did the low flickering firelight help the brain ease into a slower rhythm, more suited to long waits and shorter tempers? You think maybe both. You miss the sun, but this glow feels almost gentle. You stay seated. A few guys hum quietly to themselves. It's not a song you know. You tap your fingers on your knee, matching the rhythm, and you wonder what the sky looks like right now. Probably nothing. Probably just gray. Still, you imagine it's pink, just for the exercise. You picture clouds shaped like birds, then like biscuits, then like Novak's weird pine tree drawing. You almost smile. Someone drops their cup and swears softly. The lantern wobbles. You close your eyes again, not to sleep, just to pause. And in that pause, you remember something, the smell of your grandmother's kitchen. Bread, soap, dust, warmth. You hold on to it, just long enough. Then the light flickers back on. The world returns. You unfold your legs, take your empty cup back to the wash tin, and scrub it with cold water and a rag that has seen better centuries. You pat it dry with your sleeve. You nod to Becker on the way back to your cot. He nods without looking up from his game. You crawl under your blanket. The damp greets you like an old friend with cold hands. And for some reason, that's almost comforting now. You're not expecting to find anything new. At this point, every inch of the bunker feels known, cataloged by touch, sound, and smell. It's like living inside your own coat, familiar, slightly claustrophobic, and never truly clean. But when you sit up from your cot, stretch your spine like a creaky drawbridge, and glance across the room, you spot something odd. A letter, folded, crisp, resting just beneath your spare socks. You didn't put it there. You pick it up slowly. It's addressed to no one. No name. No rank. Just a plain envelope with the faintest pencil mark on the back. A circle incomplete. You glance around. No one's watching you. Everyone else is still in their morning rituals. Boot checking, muttering soup stirring, pretending they don't hear the groans in the ceiling. You sit down. You open the letter. It's handwritten in careful, looping script, the kind taught in schools long before anyone in this bunker was born. At the top it reads, "If you're reading this, the storm still hasn't stopped." No signature, no date, just a collection of thoughts. Some of it reads like poetry, some like a shopping list. One line is clearly the lyrics to a song from the 1920s, rewritten to be about cabbage. You keep reading. It's strange, and it's beautiful, a mainstream historical fact. Many soldiers, especially in long bunker stints, passed anonymous letters, poems, or stories along to boost morale or just to feel human again. They became tiny acts of defiance, quiet resistance against becoming numb. In some units, they were called ghost mail. You tuck the letter into your jacket. You'll read it again later. Maybe add to it. That night, you find your old pencil stub. You write on the back of the page, "The soup still tastes like regret, but I'm not dead." That feels like a win. You fold it twice. Slide it into someone else's boot while they're snoring. Pass it on. Later, during another non-meal disguised as dinner, Novak sits beside you. He has a tin. He opens it slowly and shows you what's inside.
papers, more drawings. Some are absurd. A bear playing chess with a bishop, a loaf of bread dressed as a general, a detailed diagram of the bunker ceiling labeled "Most Likely Leak Points, Revised Weekly." You laugh out loud for once. It's sharp and short and catches even you off guard. Novak smiles, not smug, just satisfied. You offer him your toast rock, just to look at. He turns it over in his hand, studying its shape like it's a museum artifact. Then he gives it back without a word. Respect, you think. Not everything needs an explanation. A quirky tidbit, the British Home Guard once issued actual field manuals with illustrated comic strips, hoping humor would increase both engagement and memory retention. Some soldiers, inspired by this, created their own underground comics, some of which were banned by command but passed around anyway. Not all resistance involves bullets. You share your corner of the cot with Novak that night, not in a cramped, desperate way, just less alone. There's something about reading by shared candlelight that softens the walls. The ceiling doesn't feel quite so low. The drip from the pipe over George's cot doesn't echo quite so loud. You write another line in the ghost letter. I think the rat winked at me today. We may be dating now. You fold it, slip it behind a loose board near the radio. Let someone else find it. Let them know the war hasn't taken everything. Historians still argue whether these kinds of anonymous letters were forms of therapy, rebellion, or desperation. Maybe all three, maybe none. But you know this, they help, and that's enough. You press your fingers against the bunker wall. It's damp always, but you swear it's warmer than it used to be. You can hear Becker snoring. You can hear the storm above. But for once, you don't mind the noise. You don't mind the closeness, the lack of air, the wet socks. Tonight it feels like something else. Like a room full of ghosts telling each other bedtime stories. Like every breath is a message. Like maybe, just maybe, you'll sleep more than an hour. You close your eyes with the letter still in your hand, and the dream when it comes doesn't smell like cabbage at all. You wake up to silence, not the comforting kind, the kind that presses on your ears like a wool blanket soaked in ice water. You sit up slowly. The lights are still on. Faint, humming like an overworked bee. No footsteps, no muttering, no coughs, clinks, or cards being shuffled badly. Just stillness. Your heart doesn't race exactly, but it definitely checks its schedule. You glance toward the corner where Becker usually snores like a distressed lawnmower. Empty. You blink, then again. Still empty. You pull on your boots. No one told you anything. No scribbled note. No whisper in the night. Just vanished. You shuffle into the main corridor, following the familiar smell of boiled socks and regret. The mess corner is empty too. Soup pot still warm. Cups still steaming. And then murmur, faint, from the far end. You follow and find them. Everyone's gathered at the southern end of the bunker, around the hatch, the outside hatch.
which to your knowledge hasn't been opened in days, weeks. Time has no meaning here. Novak is staring up at the hinge like it's a god. Becker has his arms crossed like he's preparing for a very boring mutiny. The others stand silently waiting for something. Anything. You step forward. No one explains. You don't ask. Instead, you look at the door and realize something incredible. It isn't frozen shut anymore.
A mainstream historical fact: during World War II winters, bunker doors were sometimes sealed shut by ice snowdrifts or deliberate command. It was a safety measure, but also a psychological one. The moment the door became passable, routines changed. Hope crept back in. So did fear. Someone eventually speaks. It moved. 2 words. They hang there like gun smoke. You approach the hatch. Touch the latch. It gives just a little. Enough to creak. Enough to whisper. A gust of air slips through the crack. Cold but not biting. Not the razored chill of the past weeks. This one smells different. You close your eyes. Try to name it. Dirt, tree bark, possibility. You don't open the door. Not yet. No one does. Instead, everyone returns to their cots, their corners, their rituals, like the moment didn't happen. But it did. And you feel it now like a pebble dropped in still water. A ripple. Something is shifting. You sit back on your cot, suddenly unsure if you want the world to return just yet. A quirky tidbit: in some unit, soldiers developed superstitions around bunker hatches. One Polish unit allegedly carved protective runes around their door, convinced it kept bad luck out. Another French unit called their door the Widow, because anyone who opened it alone rarely came back. Are those stories true? Who knows? But they were believed. Later that night, you lie on your back staring at the ceiling. There's a new crack. You name it. Harold. Harold is crooked and charmingly unpredictable. You think about the hatch again. It's probably snowed over by now. Or maybe not. Maybe the wind is shifting. Maybe spring is thinking about visiting. Historians still argue whether bunker-bound soldiers wanted the war to end or just for the weather to change. It's complicated. Longing for peace and dreading what came after weren't mutually exclusive. Sometimes you wanted escape. Sometimes you just wanted a breeze that didn't sting. You close your eyes and imagine walking out that door. Your boots crunching snow. The sky gray, yes, but wide. You imagine what the first breath of outside air would taste like, and whether you'd feel taller or smaller under the open sky. You wonder if you'd miss the bunker, maybe just a little. The walls, the snoring, the way Novak's drawings end up in strange places. The soup, definitely not. You roll over, pull the blanket tight. The hatch is still closed, but for the first time in a long while, it's not locked. By the next morning, everything has changed. Or at least it feels like it has. The hatch stays shut, but it's not about that anymore. It's the mood. You notice at first in Becker's posture he's standing straighter, less like a stack of badly cooked pancakes and more like a person. He even shaves, sloppily, with a piece of mirror the size of a postage stamp. Still, it counts. Novak's drawing again, but now it's color. Where he got the pencils, you don't ask. Probably traded a sock. Maybe a secret. He shows you a sketch of the soup pot with a halo. You laugh. Then immediately cover your mouth because laughing still feels dangerous. The others seem more awake. Not happier necessarily, but less gray. Someone starts humming again. It spreads like mold on wet bread. By midday, the cards are out. They're playing Not Poker, which uses 6 rules from poker, 3 from Go Fish, and 1 that no one remembers but everyone pretends to enforce. The pot includes 1 clean sock, half a chocolate bar, still in the foil, a pencil stub, and a smooth rock that might be your toast rock or a very convincing imposter. You let it slide. A mainstream historical fact. Morale boosts in confined environments like Wadwiwi bunkers could create small cultural renaissances. Nicknamed Bunker Springs, these short-lived bursts of creativity, game songs, art, even theater, emerged when external pressures eased slightly, like air returning to lungs. Some of these moments were recorded. Most weren't. That night, Becker finds a can of something behind the soup crates. He doesn't tell anyone what it is, just heats it quietly. When it's ready, he offers you the first taste. It's sweet, syrupy, almost like peaches if you squint with your tongue. You close your eyes and let it sit on your tongue for a full 5 seconds before swallowing. Luxury. Novak claps once, genuinely impressed. Then he takes out a napkin and starts drawing the can. It's labeled Product Number 7. You suggest calling it Peach-ish. He nods solemnly, as if naming a comet, a quirky tidbit Allied soldiers frequently received mystery rations with vague labels like meat product, spread for, or pudding substitute. The contents ranged from delicious to legendary horror stories. Some troops held taste tests. Others built ranking systems. One Canadian unit created a song dedicated entirely to jam apple canned. You think about that as you lean against the wall, belly warm with artificial fruit. Becker sighs, satisfied. You know, he says, I almost feel normal. You raise your cup. 2 almosts. He clinks his tin against yours. To never quite. Someone in the corner strums a string they tied across 2 bedposts. It makes exactly 1 sound. Not music, but close enough. It's enough. Later, Novak finds the ghost letter, not the one you added to the original one. The folded pages in your coat now somehow slipped under his cot. He reads it slowly, mouth moving silently with each word. Then he looks at you and says, we should add a cover page. You nod. He sketches a cracked wall with a blooming flower growing out of it. The petals look like hands. You don't ask why. You don't need to. You pin it to the inside wall with a spoon and a bit of sock string. Someone will find it later. Maybe days later. Maybe never. But it exists now, like proof that someone here felt something besides cold. Historians still argue whether the bunker bloom effect was a real phenomenon or just coincidence. Was it psychological momentum, a shared dream, or pure boredom dressed in creativity's clothes? They debate it. You don't. You lived it. You crawl back into your cot with a taste of fake peaches in your mouth and the sound of one-note music still humming in your ears. You pull the blanket up to your chin. Close your eyes. Imagine walking barefoot on grass, wet grass. Cold ticklish, you imagine you laugh, freely, loudly, and no one shushes you, and no storm waits behind your door. You've started counting things again, not in the anxious, how many cans are left kind of way. No, it's different now. You count how many jokes Novak tells in a day. Yesterday it was 3, including one about a pigeon that joined the Navy. None of them makes sense. That's part of the appeal. You count how many drips fall from the ceiling into Becker's mug before he drinks it anyway. You count how many drawings Novak sticks to the walls with old gum and string. 8 so far. One of them's just a line with a caption that reads, "Optimism." And you count the seconds it takes to fall asleep now. Not hours. Seconds. 22 last night. You're getting good at this. The bunker still groans and hums, but it's quieter now. Less a haunted house, more a tired old boat. Everyone's used to its creaks and sighs. Even the rat, who you've secretly named Lieutenant Whiskers, has stopped startling anyone. He's earned honorary citizenship. One soldier swears he saw the rat steal a pencil, chew it into 2 halves, and leave one by the radio. Peace offering. You're not ruling it out. A mainstream historical fact. Bunker life often led to personification of inanimate objects or animals. Soldiers gave names to rust patches, mold stains, even individual icicles. It was a way of reclaiming the space, turning fear into familiarity. Rats, especially, were sometimes seen as mascots or fellow survivors. Today is soup day. Well, every day is soup day. But today someone finds garlic, real garlic, not powder, not essence. An actual lumpy, noble clove of garlic tucked into the bottom of a supply crate like a forgotten treasure. It smells like civilization. You all gather around like it's holy. Becker slices it thin, ceremoniously, and drops it into the pot like he's baptizing it. The entire bunker smells like hope for 5 solid minutes. And then, somehow, it actually tastes like food. The silence afterward isn't sadness. It's reverence. Even Novak doesn't joke. You all sip slowly, eyes closed, breathing in memory. A quirky tidbit in some field kitchens. Small discoveries like a spice packet or a clove of garlic were treated like events, celebrated, protected. One American unit allegedly voted to build a shrine for a lemon before someone squeezed it into tea. The lemon was named Susan. After the garlic feast, someone proposes a story circle. It's not formal. There's no fire, no logs, just 7 tired people sitting cross-legged in a cold bunker, telling half-lies and almost truths. Becker talks about the time he tried to join a circus. Novak swears he once wrestled a goose for control of a bicycle. You admit you don't remember your real last name, but that your first crush was a girl who could burp the entire alphabet. Everyone nods solemnly. True romance. It's the first time in weeks no one mentions the war. Not once. Not even sideways. Not even in metaphor. Just stories. Little borrowed moments from somewhere else. And for a while you're not in a bunker. You're not in a war. You're not cold or dirty or hungry or scared. You're just here in the story circle, breathing in garlic and laughter and something you forgot was allowed. Joy. Historians still argue whether joy in wartime was a necessary survival tool or a betrayal of the suffering. Some call it escapism. Others call it resistance. But here in this moment, you know the truth. It's oxygen. And you were running low. You lie awake later, unable to sleep, not from fear, but from fullness. Your belly, your heart, your head buzzing with ghost letters and pencil rats and the sound of soup bubbling like music. You trace the crack on the ceiling again. It's bigger now. Harold is evolving. You smile, whisper goodnight to the garlic, and sleep comes like a blanket, warm, real, and just a little spicy. It starts with a scratch. Not the normal kind, no boots, no forks, no mice. This one's rhythmic. Scritch, pause. Scritch, scritch. You blink awake. It's dark beyond dark. The kind of dark that makes you doubt your eyes are open at all. You wait. There it is again. Scritch, scritch, scritch. It's coming from the supply room. You sit up slowly, not sure if it's worth checking or if it's just Lieutenant Whiskers composing his memoirs. But curiosity wins. You slide off the cot, careful not to wake Becker, who has somehow wrapped himself in his blanket like a condemned burrito. You cross the corridor, feeling the cold through the floor, even in your socks. The supply room door groans. Inside, moonlight, wait. No, not moonlight. That's impossible. Just a crack of light from someone's rigged lantern, faint through a cloth, and a sound, scratching, scribbling. You pause at the doorway. It's Novak, sitting cross-legged, back hunched, eyes focused. He's writing in a notebook. Where he got it, you have no idea. Maybe traded for it, maybe built it from soup labels and stubbornness. You watch him silent. He doesn't look up, just keeps writing. You clear your throat. He jumps 6 inches into the air, then smiles sheepishly. Couldn't sleep, he mumbles. Had to get it down. You step in, sit beside him. The pages, full crammed, edge to edge. Words, sketches, even diagrams. One drawing shows a rat wearing a general's hat standing over a pot labeled Victory Stew. You nod at it. Whiskers, obviously. A mainstream historical fact many soldiers kept informal journals or notebooks, even in places where writing was discouraged, not for posterity, for sanity. Some turned into published memoirs. Most were lost, burned, or simply never left the trench or the bunker. But for the writer, they mattered. You ask Novak what he's writing, he shrugs. Everything, nothing, what it smells like in here, what it doesn't. He flips the page. Wrote a recipe for cabbageless cabbage soup. It's just water and lies. You chuckle. He offers the pencil. You hesitate. Then take it. You draw something, a door, with light coming out. You don't say what it means. You don't have to. Novak stares at it, then adds a little stick figure standing just inside. Look, he says softly. We're home. The two of you sit there for a while, passing the pencil back and forth. No rules, no plans. Just making something. Later, when your fingers are stiff and your legs asleep, you close the notebook and slide it into the wall crevice behind a can of sugar beets. Let the future find it, or not. That's not the point. A quirky tidbit in at least one recorded case. A field bunker was found decades after the war with a stack of children's drawings hidden inside a ration crate. Scholars believe soldiers had drawn them to remind themselves what peace looked like, or maybe to send back home and never did. You think about that as you lay back down. Pull the blanket high. Feel the pencil lines still imprinted on your fingertips. Your dreams that night are odd. You're in the bunker, but it's a greenhouse. There's sunlight, actual sun, peeking through glass panels, and everywhere, vines, tomatoes, ivy, wildflowers growing out of the walls. Becker is watering a cabbage like it's his child. Novak is painting clouds on the ceiling with actual paint. And the rat lieutenant Whiskers is now 7 feet tall, wears a monocle, and runs a small but successful jam company. You wake up smiling. Historians still argue whether dreams in war zones reflect fear or hope, whether they're echoes of trauma or messages from the brain's desperate need for softness. Maybe both. Probably both. But this one, it felt nice, unnecessary, beautiful. You don't tell anyone about it. Just carry it in your chest like a smuggled peach. All day you walk differently. Shoulders a bit higher, steps a bit lighter, like the ground might be softer than it looks. You've started talking to the walls. Well, not talking exactly. More like muttering, sharing, conversing in that half-mind, half-mouth way, reserved for old friends and reliable inanimate objects. It's less weird than it sounds. The wall listens. It doesn't judge. It creaks sometimes approval. You assume. You tell it things like, I hope the garlic grows back. And today Becker tried to iron his shirt with a warm spoon. And once, if I don't dream tonight, I might invent a new alphabet just to stay awake. The wall doesn't reply, obviously, but the drip above your cot does pause every time you say something particularly honest. Coincidence? Maybe. Probably. Still, You feel heard. A mainstream historical fact, bunker acoustics were notorious for echoing even the softest sounds. Soldiers would whisper into corners only to hear their own words return 10 seconds later. Some swore the walls answered not supernaturally, but structurally. Sound bouncing off wet cement created weird, ghostly conversations. One night, Becker tells a joke about a ghost who refuses to haunt his bunker because it's too sad, even for me. You laugh too loud. The wall creaks again. Agreement, possibly. You begin to notice how many things are listening. The pipes, the floor, the empty tin where Novak keeps his lucky. Nothing a tin that's never held anything, but has always been with him. You lean in. Once whisper, "What's in there?" He shrugs. Potential. A quirky tidbit. Soldiers in Wubba often created symbolic items, empty boxes, sealed envelopes, untouched, rations, each representing something hopeful, imagined, or deeply personal. These anchors helped preserve identity in environments built to erase it. Tonight you write a letter, not to anyone in particular, just to later. You address it to the future inhabitant of this spot. May your socks be dry. Then you write, "We were here, we were cold, but we laughed sometimes." That should count for something. You fold it into a square and slip it behind a loose brick next to Novak's notebook and a spoon Becker bent into a horseshoe. You seal it with a bit of soup tape, a legacy, a message in a moldy bottle. Later, as you sit with your back to the wall, you realize you're not alone. Becker's doing the same. So is Novak. Each in their own corner, facing cement, whispering nothing in particular. A quiet choir of muttered affirmations, regrets, and what-ifs. The walls hear it all, and maybe, just maybe, they carry it upward, past the hatch, through the snow, out into the wind. Historians still argue whether these shared silences were therapeutic or just symptoms of isolation. Was it emotional processing, a coping mechanism, mild bunker psychosis? The jury's out, but here, deep underground, you don't care about clinical terms. You just know it helps. You press your palm flat against the wall. It's damp, but solid, real. It holds you up. You whisper one last thing. Thanks. Then lie back down. Let your mind wander. Tonight you dream of the wall opening, not crumbling or exploding, just unfolding like paper. Behind it, sunlight, birds, a table set for breakfast, real eggs, coffee that tastes like coffee, a chair with your name on it, written in soup pencil, but still you sit down. Everything's warm, and for once, no one says a word, because there's nothing left to explain. You wake with that feeling still wrapped around your ribs. Not the dream, the silence. Not empty, just complete. You stretch, crack your neck, check on the letter brick, still safe, still waiting. You smile. The wall creaks, a little louder this time, like it's laughing with you. The hatch opens. It's just a crack, just enough for cold air to slide in like a sharp reminder that the world still exists above. Someone gasps. It might be you. No boots descend. No officers bark orders. No trumpets blare. This isn't a rescue. It's just a sliver of sky. Gray, reluctant, barely brighter than the bunker's dim bulbs. But sky, nonetheless. You stare up at it, like a stranger. Becker whispers, "It's not blue." Novak mutters, "It's trying." The crack closes after a moment, but it was there. And now nothing feels the same. You go about the day like usual. Soup reheated socks, rotated jokes, recycled. But everything feels half a breath out of sync, like someone changed the sheet music to a song you've been playing for weeks. You can't stop thinking about that strip of sky. Even Lieutenant Whiskers seems agitated. He knocks over a sugar beet can, then glares at it as though blaming gravity. You forgive him. You get it. A mainstream historical fact, field bunkers during World War II were rarely permanently sealed. Ventilation hatches, emergency exits, or brief forays above meant brief, often dangerous glimpses of outside life. For those inside, even 5 seconds of fresh air could feel like a religious experience. That night, no one sleeps early. The silence feels different now, less like a blanket, more like a countdown. Becker folds his socks with ceremony, just in case he says. Novak draws a ladder stretching up into the stars with a little version of himself halfway up. You stare at the hatch. It doesn't open again, but its memory lingers. Later, someone proposes a new game. What would you eat first? Rules are simple if the war ended tomorrow, and you could have anything. What would your first meal be? Becker roast duck skin, crispy, stuffed with apples. Novak. 3 eggs, sunny side up with a cup of black coffee, so strong it files your taxes. You say toast, with real butter. Everyone nods, deep understanding. Butter, the great equalizer, a quirky tidbit. Studies of soldiers' post-war interviews show that butter and bread were the most commonly fantasized foods. Not steaks, not cakes. Butter, specifically butter melting on bread. Something about that softness, reclaiming what was once so basic. You lie awake, thinking about it. The toast, the hatch, that ladder Novak drew. And somewhere between thoughts, the floor hums. Not from footsteps, not from machinery, but from inside you. Like your cells remember what freedom feels like even after forgetting everything else. Historians still argue whether the hatch effect, temporary morale, spikes following brief exposure to the outside, had lasting psychological impact. Did it soothe or torment? Did it inspire hope or just deepen despair? The evidence is mixed. The experience unforgettable. You sit up, grab your coat, not because you're leaving, but because someday someone will, and you want to be ready. You fish the spoon letter out from behind the brick. Add one more line. We looked up, then seal it again, snug in its hiding place. The hatch stays shut the rest of the night, but now every creak, every shift of air carries a question. When? Not if. When? And with that thought tucked close, you finally drift into sleep. Not collapse, not blackout,
Sleep, gentle, earned. And somewhere in that sleep you walk barefoot across toast-warm grass. Not in a dream this time, but in a memory that hasn't happened yet. You wake before the others. Not because of a sound there isn't one. Not because of a chill. Your blanket somehow holds the heat. You wake because of a feeling, like the room has exhaled, like the walls have let go of something they were gripping tight all this time. You sit up. The ceiling drip is gone. Becker's blanket isn't twitching. Novak's sketchbook is closed beside him, pencil resting like a bookmark. No one is snoring. It's not silence. It's stillness. Complete and absolute. You don't dare move. It feels like the bunker is holding its breath. But the kind that follows relief, not tension. A kind of hush that comes after crying for too long and finding finally that you don't need to anymore. You pull your boots closer, lace them slowly, not because you're rushing to go anywhere, just because it feels like the right thing to do. The ritual of it. Sock, boot, knot. Same order every time. Same knot. Knot. Except now the knot feels like a promise instead of a precaution. A mainstream historical fact, the end of rotations in what you would field bunkers, was marked less by grand announcements and more by atmosphere shifts. A softening of guard, a shift in breathing. Soldiers often sense the change before hearing it. Instincts tuned over long nights. You glance toward the hatch, still shut, but it knows. The air tastes different now. Not fresh, not clean, just possible. Novak stirs. You look at him. We're done here. He blinks, not confused, not alarmed, just accepting. Yeah, he says softly, pulling the blanket over his head again. Okay. Becker murmurs something about finally butter. You chuckle. The rat doesn't show up this morning. Maybe he got promoted. Maybe he found a quieter bunker. Maybe he doesn't need to patrol anymore. A quirky tidbit after bunkers were abandoned. Some soldiers reported returning to find familiar rodents had vanished, almost ceremoniously. Some believed the creatures knew when to leave. Others joked they simply preferred the next batch of humans. You press your palm flat to the wall one more time. The damp is still there, but so is the strength. You say, "Thank you." It says nothing, but somehow you hear it anyway. Historians still argue whether bunker life created stronger bonds between soldiers than time above ground. The closeness, the tension, the helplessness. Did it bind people tighter or leave them cracked beyond repair? Again, maybe both. You take a last look around. The soup corner, the lucky pencil tin, the shadow of your drawing on the far wall, faded now, and your cot, narrow, lumpy, yours. You don't touch anything, you just stand. And when the hatch finally opens wide, this time really open, the kind of open that brings wind and light and the distant blessed smell of trees, you don't rush.
You rise slow, step quiet, one boot, then the other, and climb the ladder. Each rung says yes. Each breath tastes more real. And at the top, when you finally stand blinking into daylight, actual golden, no-joke daylight, you realize something strange. You're going to miss it. Not the damp, not the fear, but the closeness, the unspoken, the you that only ever existed down there. You blink again, step forward, and never look back. The sky above stretches endlessly now, blue soft-edged a bit, like watercolor left in the sun. You walk with hands in your pockets, the stiff fabric finally loosening around your shoulders. Every breath comes easier. The world is louder. Here, birds, wind trees rustling, but somehow it feels softer. You think about Becker, probably still trying to toast beet slices on a helmet. Novak sketching clouds with real colors. And the rat, maybe running a 5-star restaurant in someone's barn. You smile at the thought. Let it linger. The ground under your boots no longer hums with anxiety. It just is. Solid, patient welcoming, and the weight in your chest. Lighter now. Maybe it stays with you, maybe not. But for tonight it fades. You find a patch of grass. Sit. Close your eyes. No alarms. No footsteps. No spoon soup. Just wind. And the faint memory of garlic. And the way silence used to sound when it held everything you didn't say. You stretch out. Let your muscles remember peace. Your heart slows. Your breath settles. Sleep, when it comes now, is wide open, deep, dreamless. And when morning rises again, whenever that is, you'll be ready to meet it. But not yet. Not now. Now is for stillness. Now is for rest. Now is for the kind of quiet that doesn't need walls to echo.